Hey VC, how's it going? So normally I don't do documentary reviews on this channel. However, I'm going to make an exception for the Netflix three-part documentary Trainwreck Woodstock 99, which of course chronicles the events of the Woodstock 99 festival that was held at Griffiths Air Force Base. There had been obviously the original Woodstock from 1969, and then they had rebooted it in 1994. And then Michael Lang, who was the original organizer of Woodstock in 1969, decided that he wanted to do a 30th anniversary, pay tribute to the original Woodstock Festival, have all kind of modern popular acts that were featured with a couple of Woodstock veterans sprinkled in for good measure. And there had been a HBO documentary which had aired, I believe it was last year, where it talked about how the entire event devolved into chaos. There was fire setting, there were some sexual assaults that happened, there was just in general a lot of destruction on that last day. There seemed to be a lot of rage that had built up because kids were packed into a tiny area. It was an Air Force base. 2 of the days, I think, were in the 90s, if not 100 degrees, so the temperatures were very high. And you had food vendors and water vendors that were jacking up the prices and taking advantage of the kids who had paid money, good money, to attend the festival. Now, the HBO documentary that aired last year tended to put a lot of the blame on artists like Fred Durst, who he said was kind of inciting the crowd, provoking them to acts of violence with some of the lyrics of his songs and some of the things he was saying from the stage, or bands like Korn or Red Hot Chili Peppers, who were not trying to stop some of the fires that were being started and spread during their set, and to some extent laid the blame with the promoters, who also were greedy and overcharging and just had not thought out the entire festival very well. So it was very interesting for me to see the Netflix documentary put the blame squarely on one artist, and that artist is Willie Nelson. This three-part documentary, and I don't know that it's necessarily fair to put it all on Willie Nelson, but basically in the documentary you hear stories about how Willie Nelson decided that this was going to be his opportunity to kind of ingratiate himself to the new generation of music fans, and he wanted to kind of take on that whole outlaw image, embrace that in front of the crowd, because he felt like that was what the crowd wanted to see. And so Willie rolls out, his set was, I believe, Sunday morning, and he rolled out in a huge white fur coat, sunglasses, looking very much like a pimp, and immediately started asking women to show him their breasts. And during the course of his set, proceeded to strip down entirely naked and played the last half of his set in the nude. Now, after his set lasted, there are stories that Willie Nelson was going around the venue. He was doing some stage diving. He was in the mosh pit. He was also at least partially responsible for some of the fires that were started. Now, I did not realize that. I always thought Willie Nelson, especially at the age that he was at Woodstock 99, was kind of beyond getting up to all this reckless behavior. But in the documentary, as you will see, he was not. He was actually kind of a rebel rouser, as it were. So I'm wondering if you've seen the documentary and if you agree with that assessment that it was Willie Nelson's fault, everything that happened, what it devolved into, I guess, basically on that final day, the destruction, the chaos, the mayhem, the fires, all of it. Was it Willie Nelson's fault? And could he have done more to maybe stem some of the violence or promote more of an atmosphere of peace? I don't know. Personally, I think it's unfair to blame one artist for everything that happened. When you've got 250,000 people packed into that venue, to say it was all Willie Nelson's fault, I don't necessarily agree with. And I'm not a huge Willie Nelson fan, so I'm not trying to stick up for him, but I just feel like he was really unfairly maligned in this documentary. So anyway, wondering if you have seen it, wondering how you felt, who would you place the blame for everything that happened? And if you haven't, check it out. If you haven't seen the HBO documentary, check that one out as well. I found it fascinating. I'd kind of forgotten all about it, honestly, at the time. I didn't go, and I wasn't into a lot of the music or the performers that played that day. So for me, it was kind of like, oh, I didn't know. There was a lot I didn't know about that particular festival. So anyway, hope you're having a great weekend, and take care.